The old wooden house stood on the edge of the colony town, half hidden behind tall iron fences and silent trees. Inside, John sat alone at the kitchen table. He had placed a small handwritten note on the local board earlier that week. Wanted cook. 3 meals a day. Decent pay. He expected maybe an older human, maybe a quiet worker looking for a job. He never thought anything strange would answer. The night was calm, but John could not shake off a heavy feeling. It was the kind of night where every creak of the floor and every whisper of the wind felt louder than usual. He kept glancing at the clock. No one had come all day. He sighed, thinking maybe no one wanted the job. He was about to blow out the lamp and head to bed when a sound echoed through the silence. Knock, knock, knock. It was soft but steady. The sound came from the front door. John froze. The town was small and visitors at this hour were rare. He reached for the lantern, heart beating faster, and walked toward the door. Each step seemed longer than the last. He placed his hand on the handle but paused. Something inside told him that opening the door might change everything in his life. Another knock came, sharper this time, almost urgent. John opened the door. At first, he thought no one was there. Then his eyes lowered and he saw her, a young woman standing in the shadows. Her clothes were ragged, her skin pale with a faint glow, and her eyes wide like she had been walking through storms for days. But what caught John's attention most was not the woman. It was the small bundle in her arms. A baby, wrapped in thin fabric, let out a soft whimper. John blinked, unsure if this was real. The woman looked up at him. Her face was tired but striking, different in ways he could not explain. The shape of her eyes, the faint shimmer on her skin, the small ridges near her temples, all of it whispered one truth. She was not human. She was alien. I saw your note, she whispered in broken words, clutching the child tighter. Cook? Food? Please. John's mind raced. He had posted that note for a cook, not for strangers carrying babies, not for an alien mother seeking help. His neighbors would not approve. The colony leaders warned often about taking in outsiders, especially aliens who wandered from the wildlands. Still, something in her voice kept him from closing the door. The baby stirred, letting out a weak cry. The sound pierced the silence of the night and the walls of John's heart. He felt something heavy inside him shift. This was no trick. This was desperation. John stepped back, making space. Come inside, he said. She hesitated, eyes darting left and right as if expecting soldiers to appear from the dark. Only when she was sure no one watched did she slip inside, holding the baby close. The air seemed colder after she entered, the weight of secrets filling the room. John lit another lamp. In the yellow light, the truth became clearer. Her clothes were torn, her hands scratched and bruised. She looked like she had traveled far, running from something. The baby's small face was pale, its breaths shallow but steady. John realized at once they had not eaten well in days. You asked for cook, she said again, voice trembling but firm. I can cook. Please, let me stay. Baby need food. John stared at her, torn between fear and a strange pull in his chest. He had wanted someone to prepare meals for him. Instead, destiny had delivered an alien mother and her fragile child into his life. He wondered what danger followed them, what story hid behind those tired eyes. He could not know yet, but one thing was clear. His life would never be the same after this night. And outside, beyond the iron fences, shadows moved silently. Someone, or something, had seen her walk through the gate. The knock on his door was only the beginning. The night outside was silent again, but John could not shake the thought that someone had been watching. He closed the door slowly, locking it twice. The sound of the bolt sliding into place felt louder than it should, like a warning echoing through the empty house. The woman stood by the table, clutching her baby. The lamplight made her look even more fragile. Her skin had a faint silver tone, shimmering softly as if dusted with starlight. The ridges on her temples pulsed faintly when she breathed. Her child mirrored the same features, only smaller and weaker. John cleared his throat. Sit. You both look like you haven't eaten in days. She hesitated but lowered herself onto the chair. The baby whimpered and her arms tightened protectively. John poured water into a cup and placed it in front of her. She sniffed it, cautious, then took a sip. Relief crossed her face. Name? John asked, voice low. She touched her chest lightly. Lyra. Then with trembling fingers, she brushed the baby's cheek. This Kyle, John nodded. Strange names for strangers. He had heard of aliens in the outer forests, but most colonists avoided them. They were called dangerous, untrustworthy, too different. Yet here sat Lyra. No weapon in her hands, only a baby who looked like he might not survive the night. John heated leftover stew on the stove. As the smell of food filled the room, Lyra's eyes softened. Hunger was clear in her every movement. When he placed the bowl before her, she didn't eat right away. Instead, she broke small pieces and fed the baby first. Kyle sucked weakly, but life returned to his face with every drop. Only after he calmed did she taste the food herself. "You are kind," she whispered, voice shaky but filled with something like hope. John shrugged, though the words struck deep. It had been years since anyone called him kind. He lived alone, far from neighbors, carrying scars from a war he never spoke about. He had wanted only a cook, a quiet worker, nothing complicated. And now, this. Before he could answer, a faint sound broke through the night. Crunch. Someone stepped on the gravel outside. John's body tensed. He set down the ladle and moved to the window. Carefully, he lifted the curtain just an inch. Outside, under the dim moonlight, a shadow flickered near the gate. He saw movement, too fast, too deliberate to be an animal. His gut tightened. Whoever it was, they were watching the house. He pulled the curtain closed at once. "Someone followed you," he said, turning to Lyra. Her face paled. She shook her head quickly. "No, I was careful." No one saw, but her trembling hands betrayed her fear. John cursed under his breath. The colony had rules. Aliens wandering into human towns were not welcome. If someone reported this, soldiers would come by mourning. They wouldn't care that she was a mother. They wouldn't care about the child. They would drag her away, maybe worse. "Why are you here, Lyra?" John demanded, keeping his voice low but firm. "What are you running from?" Her eyes glistened, tears forming. She clutched Kale close. "Hunters," she whispered. "They take mothers. Sell babies," I ran. "No safe place. Only your light." The weight of her words pressed hard on John. He glanced at the door, the window, the flicker of shadow beyond his fence. His quiet life was gone. He had opened the door and now danger stood with him inside and outside. Lyra looked at him desperately. "Please hide us. Just one night." John's jaw tightened. He had no family, no one left to lose. But helping her meant crossing a line, breaking rules that kept the colony safe. Still, when he looked at the baby's tiny hand gripping her torn sleeve, he knew the choice had already been made. "You'll stay in the back room," he said firmly. "No lights, no sound. At dawn, I'll decide what to do next." Her relief was immediate, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She whispered, "Thank you," over and over like a prayer. John blew out the lamp. Darkness filled the room. The house grew still again, but outside footsteps shifted near the fence. Whoever waited in the shadows was not leaving, and John realized the night had only just begun. The morning light crept slowly into John's house, painting the wooden floor with pale streaks of gold. He had not slept. Every creak of the walls, every rustle of the trees outside had kept him awake. He sat near the window with his old rifle resting across his lap, eyes fixed on the gate. The alien woman, Lyra, and her baby slept in the back room. He had given them blankets, though he doubted they were warm enough. The baby's soft breaths and small whimpers reached his ears every now and then. Those sounds felt fragile, almost too light for this harsh world. John rubbed his tired eyes. He was used to being alone. He wanted nothing complicated, nothing dangerous. But now his house held secrets, and outside shadows still lingered. He could feel it. As the sun rose higher, John saw them. Two figures stood far down the road, almost hidden by the mist. They did not move closer, but they did not leave either. Their dark cloaks blended with the morning fog, but their stillness betrayed them. Watchers. John's stomach knotted. Whoever they were, they had been waiting through the night. That meant patience, and patience meant danger. He moved quietly to the back room. Lyra sat up at once, eyes wide. She looked like she had been awake most of the night, too. The baby clung to her chest. "They are here, aren't they?" she whispered. John nodded. "Two of them. Down the road. They don't look like soldiers." Lyra's face darkened with fear. She clutched Kyle tighter. "Hunters. They always wait. Always watch." John studied her trembling form. Her words matched what she had told him before. If these really were hunters, then the danger was worse than he thought. Why after you? He asked. There are many aliens out there. Why follow you this far? Her lips quivered, but she spoke the truth anyway. Kyle is rare, his kind. His blood is wanted. They take children like him. The baby whimpered as if sensing the fear in her voice. John's fists tightened. Selling children. The very thought filled him with a cold rage. He leaned against the wall, thinking fast. If I hand you to the colony guard, they will drive you away. Maybe worse. If I let you leave, the hunters will take you before sunset. He locked eyes with her. So what do you expect me to do? Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not beg. Instead, she whispered, you wanted to cook. Let me stay. Let me work. Let me feed you. I will be nothing but shadow in your house. Just keep us hidden. John's chest tightened. He remembered last night the knock at his door, the choice he had made. Maybe it had not been his choice at all. Maybe fate had pushed her here. A sharp sound outside cut through his thoughts, metal striking against wood. Someone had touched the gate. John grabbed his rifle and rushed to the front window. The hunters had moved closer. Their hoods were down now, revealing faces marked with scars and strange tattoos. Their eyes were sharp, scanning the yard. One of them tested the gate latch. The other sniffed the air like a wolf. John's heart pounded. He had to act. If they forced their way in, Lyra and the baby would not stand a chance. He opened the door slightly and stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. The hunters looked up at once. For a moment, silence hung heavy between them. This is private land, John said firmly. His voice carried the weight of a soldier who had seen war. Leave, the scarred man smirked. We saw a woman come this way, with a child. Not your kind. Not human. John's finger brushed the trigger. No one here but me. The hunters exchanged glances. Their smiles were cold. They did not believe him, but they did not attack yet either. Instead, the scarred one leaned forward, voice low and sharp. If she is inside, you are already dead, human. You just don't know it yet. They turned and walked back toward the mist, leaving the gate half open. John stood frozen, his chest heavy. Their words were a warning and a promise. When he stepped back inside, Lyra's eyes were on him, filled with terror. The baby clung to her sleeve. They will return, John said quietly, and next time they won't knock. The house felt smaller now, the walls thinner. The hunters had seen enough to know. The storm had only just begun. The day passed slowly, filled with a silence that pressed down on John's house like a heavy blanket. Every time the floor creaked or a bird flew past the window, Lyra flinched. She stayed close to the back room, rocking Cale in her arms, whispering soft words in a tongue John could not understand. John spent the hours repairing the old locks, checking his rifle and pacing from window to window. The hunters had not returned, but he knew their kind. They were patient, cruel, and clever. They would not walk away so easily. By afternoon, the sky darkened again. Heavy clouds rolled in, and rain began to fall in sharp drops against the roof. The sound was steady, almost comforting, but John knew it gave cover for anyone moving outside. Rain masked footsteps. Rain swallowed sound. He lit a lantern early, though he kept the flame low. Lyra moved into the kitchen, her hands trembling as she prepared food from the small supplies John had. Despite her fear, she cooked with care, adding herbs and spice he didn't even know he had in the cupboard. The smell filled the room, warm and familiar. John sat at the table, watching her. You've done this before, he said quietly. She gave a weak smile. Cooking was my life, before everything. She looked down at Cale. Before running, John wanted to ask more, but the words caught in his throat. He remembered war, remembered fleeing cities destroyed by fire. He knew the look in her eyes, the look of someone who had lost everything and still carried the weight of survival. Before he could speak, Cale began to cry. Lyra hushed him quickly, fear flashing in her eyes. She rushed to the back window, peering into the rain-soaked yard. They hear everything, she whispered. John moved beside her, his rifle in hand. The rain blurred the world outside, but then he saw it. A flicker of movement near the fence. A dark figure pressed low against the mud. Then another, slipping between the trees. They're here, John said. He doused the lantern at once, plunging the house into shadows. Only the baby's soft cries broke the silence. The first knock came suddenly. Not gentle this time. A loud, heavy pounding that rattled the door on its hinges. Bang, 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 open up, human, a voice barked, harsh and commanding. We know she's inside. Don't make us take your door apart. Lyra clutched her baby tightly, her whole body shaking. John motioned her back toward the inner room. "Stay hidden. Don't make a sound," he whispered. She nodded, tears streaking her cheeks, and disappeared into the shadows of the back room. The pounding came again. Last chance. John pressed his back against the wall, rifle raised, heart hammering in his chest. He could picture them outside, 2 hunters, maybe more. They would not leave until they had searched every corner. He forced his voice to stay steady. "This is my land. Step 1 foot inside and you won't step out again." For a moment, silence. Then laughter, low and cruel, rolled through the storm. "You think you can stop us, old soldier?" one sneered. "We've taken bigger prey than you." The words cut deep. They knew him. Somehow they knew he had once fought in the colony wars. That meant they had studied him. That meant they had prepared. A crash sounded from the back, glass shattering. John spun around, cursing. One of them had broken through the rear window. Lyra screamed. John dashed down the hallway, boots slamming against the floor. He saw the shadow of a man climbing through the broken frame, rain dripping from his cloak. The hunter's eyes gleamed in the dark. John didn't hesitate. He pulled the trigger. The rifle roared and the intruder fell back into the mud outside, silent. But the front door exploded inward at the same time. The second hunter had kicked it open, storming inside. His blade gleamed in the dim light, curved and sharp. John raised his rifle again, but the man moved too fast, knocking the barrel aside with a brutal swing. The 2 men collided, crashing into the table. Dishes shattered, food spilled. John fought with all the strength left in his scarred body. Fists slammed, boots scraped, wood cracked. But the hunter was strong, stronger than most men, and his blade flashed dangerously close. In the back room, Lyra held Cale and cried out, "John!" The struggle grew desperate. The storm outside raged louder, thunder booming as if the sky itself watched the battle. And in that moment, John realized, this was no simple fight. This was a test. If he failed tonight, neither Lyra nor her child would live to see another dawn. The hunter's blade scraped across the table, missing John's chest by an inch. Splinters flew as the wooden surface split. John gritted his teeth and shoved hard, slamming the man into the wall. The house shook with the force. Rain poured through the broken door, cold wind carrying the smell of mud and steel. The hunter smiled through blood on his lip, eyes bright with hunger. "You can't protect her. You can't protect the child." John ignored the words. He had heard voices like that in war, voices of men who thought cruelty made them powerful. His rifle was on the floor, useless in this tight struggle, so he fought barehanded, his fists like iron, his breath ragged. In the back room, Cale cried. The sound fueled John's fury. Every punch he threw carried the weight of a man who had lost too much already. He would not lose them too. Not tonight. The hunter slashed again, grazing John's arm. Hot blood spilled, but John barely flinched. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, and forced the blade down. With a grunt, he slammed the hunter's own knife against the floor. The metal clattered away. The man snarled, lunging forward with teeth bared like a wild animal. They tumbled into the overturned chairs, crashing hard. John's vision blurred, but he clamped his hands around the man's throat, forcing him down. Rain and thunder roared outside as the house shook with violence. Then, another noise. Boots crunching on the gravel. More shadows at the gate. John's stomach dropped. There weren't just 2 hunters. There were more. Lyra appeared in the hall, clutching Cale close. Her eyes widened at the sight of John locked in a deadly fight. Fear turned to desperation. She ran to the kitchen shelf, grabbed a heavy iron pan, and without a word swung it down on the hunter's skull. The sound was sickening. The man went limp beneath John. Breathing hard, John staggered up, blood dripping from his arm. He looked at Lyra, shocked by her sudden courage. She trembled, but her chin lifted high. "We must run," she whispered. John shook his head. Too late. They're already here. As if to prove him right, 3 figures appeared at the doorway. Tall, cloaked, eyes gleaming with cruel intent. The rain behind them looked like a curtain of silver, but their presence filled the house with darkness. One of them smirked. "You killed our brother." John stood tall despite his wounds. "Step inside and I'll kill the rest of you." The leader laughed. "Brave words, human, but you can't fight all of us." His gaze slid to Lyra and the baby. "Give them up and maybe we let you live." John positioned himself between them and Lyra, his body a wall. His hand found the rifle again, reloading fast. "Over my dead body." For a tense moment, the room held only the sound of rain. Then the leader gestured and the hunters spread out, circling like wolves. John's mind raced. He could not win a fight against 3 at once, but he could make the house his weapon. He moved quickly, pushing Lyra back toward the cellar door. Downstairs now. She hesitated, but the look in his eyes left no room for argument. She vanished into the dark below, the baby's cries muffled as she closed the trap door. The hunters lunged. John fired once, the blast deafening in the small room. One man fell, clutching his chest. The other 2 closed the distance, blades flashing. John ducked, swung the butt of his rifle, and cracked a jaw. Pain tore across his shoulder as steel cut him again. The fight became chaos. Blood, rain, thunder, the crash of furniture breaking. But John did not retreat. Every strike, every shot, every breath was a promise. No one would touch that mother or her child. At last he shoved the last hunter into the fireplace. Flames roared, catching the man's cloak. His scream filled the stormy night as fire swallowed him. Silence followed, broken only by the storm outside and John's ragged breathing. He stood in the wreckage of his home, body torn and bleeding but alive. Slowly, the cellar door creaked open. Lyra climbed out, tears streaking her face. She looked at the bodies, then at John. Her lips trembled. You fought for us." John wiped blood from his eyes. "I didn't fight for you," he said quietly, though his voice cracked. "I fought because no child deserves to grow up in chains." Lyra stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. In that moment she understood. This human was no simple man who wanted a cook. He was something far more dangerous to her enemies. And outside in the storm more shadows stirred. The hunters were not finished. This was only the first wave. The rain slowed by dawn, leaving behind silence heavy with smoke and blood. John's house stood broken. Shattered door, cracked windows, scattered furniture. 3 bodies lay motionless on the floor and outside in the mud. The smell of burned cloth and ash clung to the air. John leaned against the wall, his body trembling. Cuts covered his arms, blood soaked his shirt, but his eyes were sharp, still alert. He had fought through worse in the wars. Yet he knew this was different. Wars ended with treaties. This fight would not end until every hunter was gone or until he was dead. The cellar door creaked open. Lyra stepped out, Kale pressed to her chest. She froze at the sight of the wreckage. Her eyes filled with tears, not only of fear but also of guilt. "You bleed for us," she whispered. John shook his head. "I bleed because I chose to open that door last night. That choice is mine, not yours." Still her gaze lingered on him. There was something unspoken in her eyes, something that made his chest tighten despite the pain in his body. Kale whimpered softly. Lyra tried to hush him, but John raised a hand. "Let him cry. It means he's alive." For a brief moment, a fragile calm settled between them. John gathered supplies, bandages, bullets, food. His soldier's mind worked without pause. He had seen hunters in battle before. They traveled in packs, never alone. The 3 who came last night were only scouts. Others would follow. He looked at Lyra. "We can't stay here. They'll send more. Stronger ones. My house won't hold." Her face paled. "Then where?" John thought of the forest north of the colony. Deep wild land no one dared to enter. Dangerous, yes, but also a place where hunters would think twice before stepping. "The woods." "We disappear. At least long enough to find help?" "Help?" Lyra asked. "There are men I fought beside, veterans. They owe me and I owe them. If anyone can help drive these monsters back, it's them." Lyra hesitated, clutching Kale tighter. The thought of running again terrified her, but she nodded. "We trust you." John almost smiled at the words. He had not heard trust in years. By midday they set out. John led the way, rifle across his back, eyes sharp on the horizon. Lyra walked close behind, her steps light but steady despite exhaustion. The baby slept against her shoulder, tiny breaths warming her skin. The road was quiet. Too quiet. No farmers hauling goods, no children running along fences. Word of last night's violence must have already spread. People stayed hidden, fearful of whoever lurked in the mist. At the edge of town, John noticed tracks in the mud, boot prints, many of them, leading toward his land. His stomach sank. Reinforcements had already come, maybe only hours behind them. He quickened his pace. As they entered the forest, the air grew damp and heavy, filled with the scent of moss and wet bark. The trees stood like silent giants, their branches stretching wide to hide the sky. Shadows curled thick between trunks, and the deeper they walked, the less sound followed them. Lyra whispered, "It feels alive here." John nodded. "It is, and it doesn't like strangers. But that's why it will protect us if we're careful." They pressed on until the sun dipped low. John found a small hollow between rocks, shielded from view. "We rest here tonight," he said. Lyra lowered herself to the ground, rocking Cale as he stirred. She looked at John, her eyes soft despite her exhaustion. "You carry weight in your heart." "I see it." John froze. Few had dared to say such words to him. He stared into the fire he built from damp wood. "War leaves ghosts. Some never let go." She studied him a moment longer, then whispered, "Maybe saving us will give those ghosts rest." John didn't answer. But deep inside, something shifted. Her words touched places he thought long dead. The forest crackled with strange noises that night, distant howls, snapping branches. But John stayed awake, rifle across his knees. He scanned the dark, knowing the hunters would come again. And as the fire burned low, he made himself a silent vow. He would not let this woman and her child fall, no matter the cost, because somewhere between the blood, the fear, and the storm, they had become his family. The forest slept under a veil of mist, its branches heavy with dew. John sat by the dying fire, rifle across his knees, eyes sharp. His body ached from wounds, but his mind stayed awake. He knew this night would decide everything. Either they survived or the hunters would drag them into darkness forever. Behind him, Lyra cradled Cale. The baby's small breaths calmed her heart, though fear still lingered in her eyes. She had run all her life, but this was different. For the first time, someone had chosen to stand beside her. Someone had fought for her, bled for her. The silence broke. A faint whistle cut through the trees. Not a bird, not the wind. A signal. John's grip on the rifle tightened. "They're here," he whispered. From the shadows, shapes emerged. Four this time. Taller, heavier, their cloaks marked with bone talismans. The hunters spread out, their steps silent, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. One carried a chain, another a spear tipped with alien metal. They had not come to threaten. They had come to finish. Lyra gasped, clutching Cale tight. We can," John cut her off, his voice steady, almost calm. "Stay behind the rocks. No matter what happens, don't move until I call you." She wanted to protest, but something in his eyes stopped her. She obeyed, slipping into the hollow, holding Cale close. John stepped forward, out of the firelight. His figure was scarred and bloodied, but he stood tall, the rifle aimed steady. The leader of the hunters grinned, showing sharp teeth. "You killed my brothers. You think one human can stop us?" John's jaw tightened. "I don't think." "I know," the hunters laughed, spreading wider. Then they struck. The first leapt with inhuman speed, spear raised. John rolled aside, firing once. The blast echoed through the forest and the man dropped, blood painting the leaves. The second rushed him from behind, chain whipping through the air. It wrapped around John's arm, biting deep. Pain flared, but John pulled hard, dragging the man close. With a roar, he smashed the butt of his rifle into the hunter's face. Bone cracked. The man fell, but the third was already there, blade flashing. Steel ripped across John's side. He staggered, blood spilling, but he did not fall. He swung again, desperate, forcing the man back with pure will. The leader advanced slowly, watching, smiling. "You can't fight forever. You're bleeding out. Give us the child and we'll grant you mercy." John spat blood on the ground. "Mercy? You don't even know the meaning of the word." The leader lunged. Their blades clashed, steel against steel, echoing like thunder in the forest. John fought with every last ounce of strength. Each strike fueled not by rage alone, but by something deeper. A promise he had made to himself. To the ghosts of his past, to the fragile life hiding behind the rocks. Lyra peeked out, tears streaming as she saw John falter. His knees buckled, blood dripping fast. She pressed Cale to her chest and whispered, "Please don't let him die." The leader raised his blade for the killing blow, then John roared. With a surge of strength born from desperation, he slammed his shoulder into the hunter, knocking him off balance. He seized the man's own blade, twisted, and drove it deep. The leader gasped, eyes wide before collapsing into the dirt. The forest fell silent. John stood shaking, breath ragged, wounds burning. The bodies of hunters surrounded him. He had won, but at a price. His legs gave out and he sank to the ground. Lyra rushed to him, Kale still in her arms. She dropped to her knees, pressing her free hand to his wounds. "Stay with us, please." John looked at the baby's tiny face, then at Lyra's trembling eyes. For the first time in years, warmth spread through his chest. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. "Not while I'm here." Lyra's tears fell onto his hand as she held it tight.